Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of our podcast called Inside Job, the battle against self-sabotage. I'm your host, Dr. Timmy Ryan, and today I'm honored to have Miss Chanel Caldwell, a remarkable woman and a relationship coach, and she's here to share her incredible journey with us. After realizing the need to make some changes in her life, Chanel began her inner work and astonishingly manifested her husband. But it wasn't until a breaking point after her third child that she decided to really embark on a journey of profound healing. So she's here today to talk about her experiences, offer some insight. Welcome, Chanel, to the platform today. I'm so excited to talk to you and hear your story of overcoming self sabotage and how you found inner peace.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk, girl,
Sure. Yes. And this is a really important topic because we are digging down into some topics that may be difficult for us to talk about, right? And there may be some embarrassment, some shame sometimes that comes with this. So I'm just thankful that you are here to be vulnerable and this is a safe space, a brave space for you to share your experiences. Can you start us off just sharing a little bit about your journey?
Sure. I thought I had the typical childhood. I was raised by a single mom, and so that was normal and, with my friends. And when I got to high school, I was, doing I thought it was normal stuff like drinking and partying. I get to college, same thing. I'm drinking, partying. I'm thinking this is normal, and I just couldn't figure out why every relationship I was trying to get into, they didn't want me as a girlfriend, or the ones that did that I actually chose as a boyfriend, it was just all bad every time. And it wasn't until
Mm.
my last boyfriend, he got me kicked out of my apartment. He was cheating on me, had women in my apartment. It was just, I lost my job. Everything happened at the same time. And I used to just blame them like, well, he wasn't this girl, he wasn't that, and I had to look at myself in the mirror. Like, if I keep attracting these kind of men, like, am I similar to them? Like, am I not offering, like, what is
Mhm.
it? And so I started looking in the mirror and realizing, like, okay, how could I expect to meet my husband when I'm not even treating myself like a wife or like a queen, right? Like, if my husband walked by, he'd probably keep
Right.
walking because I'm drunk and thinking that's cute, right? So it's time to slow it down,
Mhm.
right? So I really looked deep and thought, who am I trying to attract, and who am I truly? Who do I really want to be in that kind of relationship, and who am I without this alcohol, right? So I stopped drinking, and then it's like, the more I dug deep, I read books, and then, my friend called me. She had a place for me. I got a new job, and then in that new job was walking distance to my new place. And then I made eye contact with my husband there, and it was just like, whoa, right? And we were engaged 6 months, married one
Right.
year, and I was pregnant on my honeymoon. And then the journey I thought would be easy actually turned out to be very difficult, and I had suicidal ideation at one point, and it was like my friend told me, like,
Mm.
"You, have everything you've ever asked for. You manifested everything you wanted, the children, the house, the husband, but you don't see it. You're not happy." And I was like, "Whoa." And that was deep because I was really depressed,
Yeah.
and that's when I started feeling like, this doesn't make sense. And that's when I did the work. And when I finally put the pieces together and found my inner peace, I was like, I have to share this. So that's where I am now.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that and your experiences. And when we talk about the topic of self-sabotage, can you define to the audience what's your definition of self-sabotage? What does it look like?
So I think self sabotage is when you have hidden beliefs, hidden subconscious beliefs about yourself. And that's when you subconsciously create situations for the things that you truly desire to, like, not happen, right? So it stops you from being able to have the things
Mhm.
you truly want because somewhere deep inside you have a belief about whether you're worthy, whether you deserve it, and just so many different hidden beliefs. And so that's what I think that self sabotage is truly.
And in your story, at what point did you identify that maybe you were exhibiting some self sabotage behaviors, or did you kind of overlook it and say, I don't really want to touch that?
I didn't know what to call it, but I think the beginning of my journey when I
Mhm.
realized that, I'm attracting all these men. I realized that, I had,
Yes.
yeah, I had something to do with it, but I didn't realize until really deep into my healing journey that I had some wounds from my childhood that made me feel not deserving and also like I wasn't worthy. And so when I put that piece and I started comparing it to my relationships, I realized, oh, right there, I did this, and that. So I couldn't have that thing. I did this, and that. So I couldn't have that thing.
Hmm.
And it was after that that I realized, whoa, I've been doing this for a really long time.
And it is this sort of continuous cycle because it's like you might make a poor decision. And as you mentioned early on, okay, I'm going to blame that person. And that's not to say that that person was not wrong in what they
Right.
did, right? But if we sort of kind of have this constant attitude, well, it's everyone else, then we avoid taking some ownership and some accountability at what part we might have played.
Absolutely.
What are some of the common signs that someone should look out for if they perhaps think that they're engaging in self-sabotage?
I think first and foremost is ask yourself, what are the things that I really truly desired in my life? Right. And if you think about that
Mhm.
and then you ask yourself, have I ever been able to have that without some drama around it? Right. And so if it's a boyfriend
Right.
and you realize that no, it's always traumatic, it's always dramatic, there's always drama, all this stuff. Okay, that's one. Have I been able to have the job that I wanted? Nope. I didn't get hired there. I didn't get hired there. It's like, okay, now it's time to look at why are you not able to have these things now, whether you're religious or not. I truly believe in a higher power, and I
Mhm.
believe that it is ordained, it is for us that we are able to have free will, which doesn't mean that you can just choose what you want, but also have what you want. Like, we are the creators of our lives, and so if there's something that you really want and you just can't seem to touch it, it's time to take a look at what you could be doing to cause it to block you, and not on purpose. I'm not blaming you, sis. I'm just saying energetically,
Right,
yeah.
right, yeah. And I love how you talked about your friend kind of coming to you and saying, girl, something's kind of going on here. We need to talk about this." How important was that conversation that you had with her at that moment?
Huge. I was literally sitting on the railroad tracks. I was done. I was done. I told her I'm out. And I
Mm.
had been having postpartum to where like I would look out the window and I would hear a voice like, just jump. Like, the kids don't need you. Your husband could find a better wife. Your kids need a better mom. You are not doing it, sis. And like literally that's all
Mhm.
I could hear. And I went to sit there. And when she told me that, it was like, she's right. I have everything I've ever asked God for. And I'm ungrateful. It just made me feel
Mhm.
ungrateful because I know she said, "Girl, there's women that would kill for your life. You literally have everything that most women would want." And I just thought, wow,
Right.
it was just perspective, and I needed that conversation.
And did you have to or did you seek out professional support? What did your support system look like once you identified, okay, hey, I need to make some changes. There's some things I need to work through. What did that support look like for you?
Well, I'm an Aquarius, so of course we think, we want to figure out all the information ourselves, right? So I went right to books, and
Right.
but what I did notice is that I had this like I didn't want to take medication. And I just kept saying
Mhm.
that, but when it was so bad where I was really frustrated feeding my baby, like, "Oh, he wants to eat again, like, how dare he?" It's like,
Mhm.
absolutely not. Like, the minute I started feeling, like, anger
Yeah.
towards him for wanting to eat, I'm like, "Okay, I need to get help," and so
Mhm.
I went and they gave me, some, antidepressant medication, and I took it, but I told myself, "I don't ever wanna, like, be reliant on these forever," and so as I was reading, as I was learning these new skills, I took the medicine so I could get out of the bed and do them. But it's okay. Get the meds. Don't be a hero. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Yes. Don't be afraid to seek out that help and support because as you mentioned, and we'll get into this a little bit in talking about trauma, these are things that we've been carrying for a while, right? And trying to unravel all of that and then you start opening up wounds, that's a lot. And so I always encourage people to rely on their support network. Don't be afraid to access those resources that are available to you so that you can get through those difficult times in your life.
Right.
Can we talk a little bit about, because you mentioned in your childhood there was some trauma that you experienced and you realized and sort of saw the connection between your past and your present and how it was creating a barrier towards your future. How do our past experiences and trauma really influence our relationships?
Ooh, this is a deep one. Here we go. So if
Yes.
if you think about how our subconscious mind works, right? So we have our conscious mind that allows us to accept or reject things, information. Our subconscious mind is like the catch-all basket really deep in our mind that just says yes to everything, that makes it through all of the different filters. But when you're between the ages of 0 and 7, that's it. It's open. So everything that your parents are putting in there,
Mhm.
it's going deep into your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is how you blink and swallow things that you don't think about. So people think that your subconscious
Mhm.
mind only helps you to walk and blink and stuff, but these are also beliefs that are in there. And either they go in between the ages of 0 and 7, or they go in via trauma or repetition. Like if your parents always doing something or something traumatic happens. And so
Mhm.
once that belief, or let's say in my case, I believe that it was due to my mother and my father separating, and he started a new family. He wasn't trying to hurt me, but I felt rejected and abandoned. And my mom was going through her own stuff. So I just didn't have the support that I needed to like deal with everything. And I think also culturally, it's like, you just got to pick up and move on, girl. The black woman strong, girl.
Right.
It's like
Yes.
I'm a child, though, not a black woman
We
yet.
can we can make it. Yes.
And so, yeah,
We can make it through
yes,
anything.
we can make it through, but can it just be a little softer, please?
Right.
And then so I realized that, but it was actually when I started, it's like a rabbit hole when you start looking at spirituality. So I first watched The Secret, and then it's like,
Mhm.
oh, law of attraction. And I found my way to like quantum healing, right? And so I found a quantum leap,
Mhm.
and I didn't know what it was. And I watched it, and it was the meditation. So as I did the meditation, it was for us to find and jump to the moment when our, I guess, our some part of our spirit was broken and began the problems that we have now. And when that happened,
Mhm.
I we had to open the door and everything, and I was 5 years old. I was on my mom's lap, and I was hearing that I wouldn't be in my dad's wedding when I was 5, right? And that's what
Mm.
memory came up. It was so random, but that's when I
Yeah.
knew, okay, this is huge, this connection. And the more books I read, the more I realized, well, it is way bigger than I thought. And it had so much to do with the men I
Right.
was choosing. And I think also we hear like, oh, you're gonna meet a man like your dad. You're gonna marry someone like your dad, right? They say. But I find that
Mhm.
it's the most emotionally impactful parent, and that's good or bad. And so that could be your mother. And so in my case, I married someone like
Mhm.
my mom had the same negative traits. Luckily, they were temporary,
Okay.
but yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And it's huge. It impacts everything.
And that self-awareness, I think, is key. And that's where I think we struggle because it is like you have to admit, okay, there's some role in this that I am playing in this. And so that self-awareness, how did that help you in really coming to terms with that you needed to make a change?
It's everything. I use self awareness every day
Mhm.
since I found this because, and I think a lot of us have ego, and it's all good, right? Like we have an ego and we don't want
Yeah.
to feel like, what? I'm not doing nothing. But I read this book from Eckhart Tolle, and he really talks about the different voices that we hold in our minds, right? And this was the first time I know because
Mhm.
before that I always thought that my thoughts were my thoughts. And after I read this book, I
Right.
noticed there was two distinct thoughts in my mind. And I tell everyone to try this trick. Get up in the morning and just listen, and you'll hear your higher
Mhm.
self tell you maybe whatever it is that you want. So it might tell you if you want to lose weight, it might tell you get up and work out, sis, right? And the other voice will say, just hit the
Mhm.
snooze. Just hit the snooze. It's all right. So those are the two voices. Now, your higher self is in this is what I believe. that it's been here before. It's connected to the fabric of the universe. And so once you tell it what you want, it knows exactly how to get you there. But we did, and it tells us every day those
Mm-hmm.
small directions, those small steps to get there. But we ignore
Right.
it. And so once you realize that there are those two voices, it is now your permanent job to shut that negative voice off as often as possible. And you've
Mm-hmm.
got to do that. And so once you realize that this is all from things that you couldn't control, it makes it a little easier to, take accountability, which is necessary as well to change your life. And so, yeah, I definitely have little tips and tricks on how to question all of your beliefs and thoughts as they come as well. So, yes.
And just remaining consistent in it too, because it's not something we can do one day and then it's like, okay,
Right.
I fixed everything, right? It's like this continual practice that we have to engage
Right.
in. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about what you're doing to help others because I know you have your own business, Sista Sutra. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing, how you've helped others?
Sure. So, like I said, once I realized that I needed to do this, I began to share online all of the different tricks that I've been learning. But I actually moved more towards the direction of helping single women and married women to heal all this stuff inside so that they could either rekindle their relationships and remove all the baggage that they've brought with them
Mm-hmm.
in this relationship, or to heal all the stuff that's going on inside so they can actually attract a healthy, healed, faithful man, especially if they've been dealing with toxic relationships. It just really brings everything all together so that you can really get that deep healing. Because I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that therapy is not enough to help you get through this stuff.
And so you really are approaching things really from this sort of wraparound approach where you have to take bits and pieces to really get, I guess, the best result, right? So for some, therapy may not be enough. For some, medication may not be sufficient. And so exploring those other resources that are available, it sounds like that's what you're really wrapping around the women that you work
It's
with.
so necessary because I think people could be in therapy for 10 years, right? And then they get to this one
Mm-hmm.
moment, something happens, and then their body reacts. Not even them like consciously. It's like they had a physical reaction to something that happened because whenever we have trauma, it is stored in our body and it's not going anywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
some people realize that like you could have the most healthiest person that jogs every day, eats healthy, and then gets cancer. And people are like, what's going on? And a lot of times spiritually, cancer
Right.
can be linked to like deep feelings of regret or remorse, right? And so it's a lot of energetics that happen that can cause us physical illness. And so
Mm-hmm.
you can't just talk through it and basically desensitize yourself from the story of whatever's happened. But we've got to reprogram our subconscious mind, get rid of those negative beliefs that we've put in our brain, and also remove that energy that's stored from our body. And I also believe healing our inner children that are stored in our body each time trauma happens so that we can truly live a fulfilled
Mm-hmm.
life as well.
Yes, and trauma came up again, that word because it's so impactful in how we live day to day in our future. And to think that something that happened to us 20, 30 years ago is still impacting us. A lot of times that's hard for us to really sit with
Right.
that. But I've certainly seen it, working with clients and so in coming to terms with that and getting that support. What advice would you give to our listeners who are dealing with some of the challenges that you experienced as a young woman?
The first thing that I would say is to be compassionate with yourself because
Yes.
I am the first person that would just beat myself up. And I didn't realize that until I started doing my self compassion work and realized how
Mm-hmm.
much more grace I would give other people before I gave it to myself. And so that's first and foremost.
Right.
Also, healing that trauma. I mean, you can go wherever your brain tells you to go first. I wish I had known about coaching when I was doing my journey. I had no
Mm-hmm.
idea that people like me existed. So I just picked up books,
Yes.
right? And therapists. I didn't understand. I
Mm-hmm.
did go to therapy briefly, but within a week and a half, I mean, I was helping her with her stuff, I was like, okay, this this ain't it. Um,
Uh-oh. Boundary
right?
violation. That is a clear boundary
Yeah,
violation.
that's when I realized maybe I'm a little farther along than I thought. Let me just keep reading these books. But
Right.
yeah, you know, you've got to dig really deep, and the inner child healing I found was huge because it's like every time you have a traumatic event, depending on your age. So let's say you're 2 and somebody comes in and they hurt you physically, and when you were hurt, you went and hid under a blanket, right? That was a coping skill you
Mhm.
created at 2 years old. And so that 2-year-old is stored in your body somewhere. And so whenever you get really scared as an adult, you might find yourself like either doing it like, you know, not curling up in a ball, like technically, where you're like
Mhm.
avoiding things, or you could literally go under your
Right.
blankets and you don't realize that's a response. And it's you could be a teenager
Mhm.
and you lash out, and then when you're an adult and someone attacks you, you immediately turn back into that teenager and go right back into defense mode. These are coping skills that come up. It's almost like if there's like 10 people in a boat, and whenever something familiar comes up, your adult self is driving and your teenage self is like, "Oh, I know what this looks like. I'll drive, homie." And then they start driving. And that could
Right.
be why when you argue with someone, it's almost like they're not there anymore and you can't really get through to them. It's
Mhm.
because it's not. It's their younger version of themselves with whatever this looks like, and their inner child is driving. And so to me, that actually helped to save my
Mhm.
marriage, was realizing how many times our inner children were were going to war with each other often. You know, it was
Yes.
really really intense. And so I would say pick up these books. Don't be closed minded, because some people maybe be religious and they're like, I don't believe in that. But if you believe in science that
Mhm.
everything is energetically moving, right? You might not believe in the law of attraction in the way that they talk about it, but if you think about it as like physics and science, if everything on this planet has
Mhm.
energy, so do we. And also, the law of vibration states that not only do things have energetic frequency, but also our thoughts and emotions. And so that's heavy. So
Right.
when you're attracting people that you feel like are different than you or they're toxic, it's actually your energetic frequency that brought you together, and your trauma from the past is like a dog whistle to their trauma from the past. And you're going to keep inviting them into your
Mhm.
life until you break that chain and start doing something about that trauma. So books, therapy, Reiki, energetic things are very important. You know, get you a coach that's been there, done that, and can guide you. One of those, right?
Right. Yes. Yes. I love it. And I thank you so much for taking the time out. And we talked a little bit about, what things looked like for you when you were having those challenges. Tell the listeners, what are things look like for Chanel
Ah,
now? Because now we're in a better place. What are things looking like now?
well, I mean, I'm nobody's perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. I still have times when I um, see, because over time, that negative voice, it might be violent when you're depressed. It gets sneaky. It gets sneaky over time. You know, it could
Mhm.
go from you being like, "Oh, do I want a glass of water?" And then you're like, you're reaching for it, and then it's like, "Oh, Kool-Aid sounds better," and you don't realize that that's it. That's it, right? So I'm
Right.
able to reel it back in though, right? And so I have a set of tools that I
Mhm.
use on a daily basis that allow me to stay peaceful. I'm no longer feeling sad all the time. I actually feel truly happy and blessed to be here. I feel grateful. I feel peaceful. I enjoy the people in my life. It's just so much has
Mhm.
changed. And also, I am attracting better quality people into my life. The things that I want are coming
Yes.
to me a lot easier. You can call it manifestation, you can call it hard work, whatever you want to call it. But it's just coming into my life, and it
Right.
is just everything that I've ever wanted, and it allows me to truly just enjoy the present moment and not be in my mind in the past or be worrying about the future.
Yes. And I want to go back to something you said because it just came to me when you were talking about removing toxic people out of your life. That's something that we struggle with as well because it's not, especially when we're talking about long term friendships, relationships that we had with people. How do people make those steps in and sort of taking a new view of who's around them and evaluating, okay, is this relationship, friendship really serving me? How can folks do that?
It actually happens really naturally. When you start healing, you begin to go on a different frequency. And I know you may or may not believe in that, but when you're on a different frequency, the people
Mm-hmm.
that you're used to hang out with, it no longer is in alignment. And so the things that they want to do, you may not want to do. Or if you realize you have a friend that's like always negative and you're over here trying to think positive because that's the way you want your life to go, right? Because if you think about it,
Right.
our current lives are the product of our past thoughts, right? So if we're living in a
Mm-hmm.
horrible life right now, it's because our thoughts were horrible. So that also means if we think positive, our future could be positive. So if you have those people that are just stuck, it's so much easier to be like, I don't want
Mm-hmm.
this. But I would absolutely ask yourself, is this person serving me? And do I really want to take them along to my next step? Now, if you have people
Right.
in your life that you cannot cut out, like your parents, and out for me, my mom's not perfect and neither am I, but I love her and our relationship is
Mm-hmm.
totally worth it to me to deal with it, right? And so it's
Yes.
about identifying your triggers where you can stay in your peace element and identifying when the people, if, once you learn how they move and you understand the psychology of people and what they're doing, you can like exit yourself out before that starts, or you can learn how to
Mm-hmm.
talk to them in a way that is doesn't trigger them or create an argument, and learning how to communicate your own feelings without starting those fights, and also standing 10 toes on what your feelings are and not feeling guilty about whatever you're getting ready to say. But
Mm-hmm.
that definitely comes with the work. So don't feel bad if you're not able to make those decisions right now because you're just not ready. But when
Right.
that change happens, oh, it's nothing. Oh, it's nothing.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
you see it, you're a pro at it. You're like, okay, setting the boundaries.
Yeah.
And that can be hard, setting those boundaries, especially as you mentioned with family members, loved ones, and sometimes feeling guilty.
Right.
But when you look at how better you feel how your life begins to look differently when you start putting those boundaries in place, it is worth it. And you'll see that outcome and you'll feel good about those decisions, even if they're tough decisions, right?
Absolutely.
So, where can people find you? Where can they look you up? And we'll have that information in the podcast description as well.
Sure. So I am on, if you go on Facebook and you do the little facebook.com/, my ending part is chat
Mm-hmm.
with Chanel. But I am on Facebook as
Okay.
Chanel Caldwell. And then on Instagram, I am under
Okay.
Sista Sutra. And I have sistasutra.com. And we also talked about how to, be able to make those good decisions. And so I believe that that comes
Mm-hmm.
with intuition and your self trust. And so I created an intuitive empowerment bundle that comes with affirmation cards, daily action steps, and also a little mini
Nice.
course that you can get. I'll give her the link so that you guys have access to that. It's really powerful and it's free. I got you.
Amazing. Thank you. We love freebies. We love things that are going to get us right, but also check out the other resources that Chanel has as well. And just know, to those of you listening who may be feeling like you're struggling with decisions you've made or feeling stuck in the past, there is hope on the other side. There is work you have to put into it. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable. But as Chanel talked about, she's a testament to that and putting in the work and how that can change your life and change your perspective ultimately as well.
Right.
Thank you so much, Chanel, for taking the time out again to talk with us. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with before we wrap
I
up?
did. I did. Okay. I have to give you this tip, this little tool.
Yes.
So if you are
Yes.
having a thought or a belief and you don't know if you're tripping, you ask yourself 4 questions. So the first question is there any rational reason for this belief? Like, is there any reason why I'm feeling this? And the next question is, could I be
Mm-hmm.
mistaken by this belief? So could I be tripping, right? Let's say you're like, I don't know, this guy is probably going to scam me. I mean, out of nowhere, right? So these are the questions you could ask. Am I tripping? And the next one is, would I feel the same way if I was talking about a different person in a similar situation? And that could be when you're talking about your body or how you feel about yourself. Like, would I say this to someone else? And the last one is,
Mm-hmm.
if I have no reason and no proof to feel this way, why do I continue to act and feel this way? And so once you answer all those questions and you get to the last one and you're like, actually, no, this thought is crazy or this belief is not good. This is a part of your of what I teach as your subconscious reprogramming. You will now say cancel, cancel. So
Mm-hmm.
you're basically giving your brain a new command, like a computer, and you'll just replace that negative thought or belief with 3 positive and true statements. Whether they happen yet or you want them to happen, you're just going to start shoving in the beliefs that you want to believe, the things that you want to happen in your brain, and start using repetition to get it into your subconscious mind and kick that yucky stuff out. So that is one huge tip that I still use to this day that I think is really powerful tool that will help you guys.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. And go back, write all those steps down, look at the episode again if you
Yeah.
forgot, because these are the sort of things that we can consistently do to start changing our thoughts and making those positive behaviors that we want in our life, and seeing that positive action. So thank you again so much, Chanel. Thank you, audience, for listening. We have more episodes on the way, and we will see you back soon.
Bye. Thank you.